And welcome, folks, to Champions for Life radio broadcast and podcast. I'm your host, Ken Wilson, and we are very delighted to be in studio with you today. Man, so much in the news today. We're really going to be pressed to get to it all, but I'm very excited to be here today. I also want to mention, by the way, 40 Days for Life is coming up. So if you have not yet signed yourself up or your church, you want to do so at 40daysforlife.com/Las Vegas. We're going to be talking a little bit more about that later in the broadcast podcast. Also want to shout out to KKVV 1060 AM Christian Talk Radio, whom we absolutely love, who is simulcasting this podcast over the air, and we absolutely love them for doing so. KKVV, the light of Las Vegas, and we love you guys so much. So welcome to the podcast today. There is something we're going to talk about. Before we get to it, though, we want to do our sponsors. So we're going to let you have a listen to this. I want to take a moment to acknowledge one of the great sponsors of the Champions for Life radio broadcast, such as RTS Postal Express, for all your Las Vegas copy needs. Black and white copies, color copies, business cards, resumes, you name it. RTS Postal Express is going to meet your needs quickly. RTS stands for really terrific service. See my man, Angelo. Here's the telephone number, 702-489-4859. And if you mention the Champions for Life radio broadcast, get 10% off your first order. And welcome back, folks. I want to mention RTS. RTS is going to go ahead and honor the Labor Day special that they've offered until further notice. So you better hurry, though. And no matter what, if you mention the Champions for Life radio broadcast, always remember that you will get 10% off your order. So, like I said before, make it a big one. All right. What we have in the news today, now everybody is still mourning over Charlie Kirk, and our hearts go out to the families. I know they're touched by your prayers and everything that's happening. It's just tragic. It's just a tragedy in America. But there's some things that I want to talk to, and before I get to that, we want to talk about the stats. Here at First Choice, of course, you know that First Choice is a pregnancy help center here in Las Vegas. And what they do here is they help young ladies who find themselves into a very difficult pregnancy situation, a crisis pregnancy situation, and they help them. And it doesn't matter what the problem is. And even after birth, they're there as well. And so every week is very busy. Every year is very busy. And in fact, to date, over 45,000 children are alive today because First Choice exists. And the amazing thing is, they have never charged a client, not even a penny. And that's why I love them. It's why I'm here. It's why I do what I do. It's why you should volunteer, as a matter of fact. So if you notice the number below, if you'd like more information about either volunteering or donating or even becoming an evangelist for First Choice, letting your group, church, business know about our clinic, then contact us at the number below, 702-294-CARE. That's 702-294-2273. Now, last week, rather busy here at First Choice. They did 35 pregnancy tests, and they did 33 ultrasounds for clients. And this is this past week, from the 10th through the 16th, and all free of charge. And I absolutely love that about First Choice, that every single client that walks through the doors. Can you think of a clinic or a hospital that offers their services for absolutely free? That your insurance card is not any good here? That's why I love First Choice. And so if you would like to avail yourselves of services at First Choice, if you find yourself needing more information, perhaps you're even abortion-minded. Maybe you're planning on going ahead and having the abortion, but you'd like more information about what that will entail. Maybe you're contemplating taking the abortion pill, and you want more information than just what maybe Planned Parenthood is telling you. Listen, we have nurses and counselors on staff that will give you all the information that you need to know, a lot of times that consequences of which you would never have been told by, Planned Parenthood or the abortion clinic. And you need to know. And the staff here would be more than willing to talk to you, no matter what your decision is. So give First Choice a call. Make it a resource in case, maybe you have a friend or relative that actually needs services from First Choice, maybe facing a very similar situation. Give them a call. Give them our number, 702-294-CARE. 702-294-2273. And tell them to, get in touch with First Choice Pregnancy Services, because they can be a blessing to them. Okay, so here's this one's tough. This one's tough. There's a poll that's been taken recently in light of the Charlie Kirk assassination. And it was done by the Neapolitan News Service, which, to be honest with you, I'm not very familiar. And they only sampled 1,000 folks. But even within that 1,000, the stats that they came out with, the percentages are a little troubling. And the Neapolitan News Service's poll, this is a story by Melissa Rourke from the Daily Caller. This poll found that a staggering 26% of those aged 18 to 34, listen to this, answered yes to this question. While it is always difficult to wish ill of another human being, is America better off now that Charlie Kirk has been killed? In case you missed this question, I'm going to repeat it. While it is always difficult to wish ill of another human being, is America better off now that Charlie Kirk has been killed? And 26% of those who have been polled answered yes. And that is very, very troubling. This is America, folks. Those ages 18 to 34. The survey also found that 31% of respondents who identify with the Democratic New York Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, and her policies believe that the country's better off following Kirk's death. And across all respondents, 15% answered affirmatively to the prompt, 67% said no, and 18% were unsure. Just 38% of Democrats said they prayed for Kirk and his wife and children, compared to 75% of Republicans and 55% overall. Among the Democrats, and there's a reason why we're going through this polling data, by the way, so just bear with me. 31% said Republicans were more responsible for political violence in America, while 35% of Republicans answered that Democrats were more to blame, 31 versus 35. Overall, 66% of respondents said that no single party is more responsible, with 18% pointing to Democrats and 15% pointing to Republicans. So everybody's pointing their fingers at each other. This is, for the climate that we now find ourselves in. 36% of Democrats said that the Republican Party played a role in encouraging Kirk's assassination. 36% of Democrats, while 29% cited anti-Trump rhetoric. Those numbers are 35 and 32 respectively if you include Democrats, people who lean Democratic. And I know it's a lot of numbers. Just bear with me. We're getting to a point here. 24% of Democrats identified the media as partly responsible, compared with 42% of Republicans. So people who are conservative tend to point to the media for potentially raising the climate, if you will, the language that encouraged the assassination, while only 24% of Democrats said that. And among Republicans, 57% described Kirk's assassination as a significant turning point in American history, which I would tend to agree that it is very significant. I would consider this analogous to the shooting of Dr. Martin Luther King. I really would, because while the issue is slightly different, because of the culture that we're in today and the issues that we face, while they're slightly different, they are nevertheless very important. And the climate of America is based on the friction between diverse viewpoints on things like transgender issues, things like the political discourse, whoever is president, and it's a problem. And this survey denotes that. Earlier polling has showed similar trends. An April poll found that 48% and 55% of left-of-center people were believing that Tesla CEO and Elon Musk and President Donald Trump are at least, it was justified in harming these two people. And that's very, very troubling. And additionally, a recent Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression survey found that over a third of college-age students are open to the use of violence to stop a campus speech. 35%. Very troubling. And a growing number of people have faced professional consequences for vitriolic behavior and celebratory social media posts in the wake of Kirk's murder. And that is why I went through all of these numbers, because I wanted to talk about this today. The first thing you have to recognize in America today, that there is a dichotomy of left versus right. And obviously, there is people are very vehement about their beliefs, some to the point where they will use violence to make their point. And the problem for us as Christians is, how do we respond, right? I remember seeing just recently a poll. Actually, it was a YouTube video, I believe, actually, of where one YouTuber was actually counting the amount of people that they had gotten fired because of what they had said, whether it was a politician, a teacher, a medical professional, or a police officer. It didn't really matter. He was running this stat, this counter on how many people he was able to get fired because of what someone had said. Now, here's the problem with that. The problem is that when the news of Charlie Kirk's death wanes over time, and it will slowly, we are going to find that the side that we don't agree with is not going to forget, because we posted a lot of it on social media and such. And ultimately, these comments, these viewpoints, this animosity towards the other side, this desire for revenge, if you will, is going to come back to harm us. Specifically, those people who are bent on trying to get even from Charlie Kirk. And that's what I wanted to talk to you. I was a little editorializing today on the Champions for Life radio broadcast. There's a great story that was put out by Kelsey Reinhardt from Catholic Vote. She writes, last Friday, our team ended the week, as I'm sure many of you did, sad, angry, and bewildered over the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And thanks be to God, this week began with signs of hope as our team members shared stories from the weekend. And without going into those, I want to cut to the middle of her story. It says, none of this erases the injustice done to Charlie and the pain inflicted on his family. It does, however, illustrate something important when looked at in context of what we saw happening all over the world. Heartbreak and justifiable anger over Charlie's death, but also the celebration of his life. And many are asking, what can I do? Rather than silence a movement, Charlie's assassin has energized one, and has begun a small but mighty movement in the hearts and minds of people to whom freedom of speech and the right to peacefully advocate for one's belief are paramount. And it said, for us, this means moving forward and redoubling our efforts to inspire every religious faithful in America to live out the truths of our faith in public life. And that just doesn't mean elected officials. It means all of us. What better way to honor Charlie Kirk than to step up, confident in our devotion to Christ, and engage the world around us as he did? And he said, not all are called to hold rallies on college campuses, but we can each have an impact in our corner of the world, and that can be done in many ways, and here are just a few. Number one, and President Trump mentioned this, register to vote. Make it a point to register and encourage others to register to vote. Make your vote count. Vote every time there is an election. If you have an opportunity, there's no such thing as an unimportant election. You have I would almost call it a civic duty to vote. Do it. Actively support worthy candidates for office and contact your elected officials to let you know what you think on key issues. And I want to mention, too, that, for example, if you find a great candidate, maybe an assemblyman or assemblywoman that's in your district, or a congressman that's running, or a state senator, or whatever, or even a city council member or a school board member, and you know them, or you're friends with them, or they are really aligned with some of the viewpoints that you hold near and dear, then call their campaign and ask to be a part. Begin to, walk the precinct. Distribute flyers. At the very least, talk to them, your friends and family, about who this representative is and why you're supporting them. It's very easy to do. Doesn't take a whole lot of time. It takes a little bit, but it definitely will help their campaign. You also want to hold study sessions with your friends who become more familiar with, your perspective on a lot of issues, a lot of social issues, a lot of political issues on important topics, especially pro-life and gender issues, which is, the main topics nowadays that face our country. Seek roles on school boards, parent-teachers associations, and other places where faith-based thinking can make a difference. And most important of all, and I couldn't say this enough, pray, pray, pray. And she made that very, very good argument. It's the most important thing you can do. In fact, 40 Days for Life, that is our whole movement in praying for 40 days in front of an abortion facility. But regardless, pray that your efforts will make a difference. Pray for our culture. Pray for your city and your state. That there can be a change towards forgiveness and love rather than vengeance, because it's not, vengeance and anger is not what's going to win the day. And I'm hoping that next week we are going to have one of my good friends and Pastor Dave Childers, as our guest, because he's written a fantastic book on forgiveness. And I know, right now our hearts are tender towards his family, and it's very, very difficult to even talk about forgiveness when someone has done this horrible tragedy to the Kirk family. But forgiveness and love needs to be the motivating factor in our actions. And I'm really looking forward to Pastor Childers coming and explaining. I call him like the king on forgiveness, because he's written a fantastic book. And that should be our motivation, especially when we're dealing with a lot of anger issues. And we have every right to be angry at what has occurred to us as a nation. And so, but the question is what we do with that anger and how we handle it. And there's a couple of stories that I want to talk to you about, and one of them is an incredible story of forgiveness, and it's it deals with a missionary by the name of Elisabeth Elliot. And this is a beautiful lady who is married to a missionary. And if you could bring up that story. Her husband went to be a missionary to the Achuas tribe in Ecuador. Rather unreached, primitive tribe, and that tribe murdered Jim Elliot, the missionary. And if we can scroll up a little bit, we can see the picture of this beautiful lady. What Elisabeth Elliot did, she decided that she was going to go back. She was going to go back with her daughter to this tribe to complete the work that her husband had begun. Can you imagine that? Christian missionary going back to the very tribe that had ended the life of her husband. Amazing, amazing love. And a popular quote from Jim Elliot sums up the ministry of his wife, Elizabeth. Determination, not desire, determines destiny. And we'll have those days when we don't feel like ministering to others. Even when we are answering the call in our life, or if we're doing what we love to do, feelings are fleeting. It is the determination to continue that keeps us going. And when it was difficult to get out of bed because of pain of her lost husband, Elizabeth knew that God still had a calling, and not only for her, but for the lost souls of the Aqua tribe in Ecuador. And it was through Jim's martyrdom that left a legacy that paved a way for her to reach that tribe and took her husband's life for the glory of God. And her determination gives all of us hope that there's nothing that any of us cannot overcome. And she learned grace through hardship and was convinced that God's love was offered to all. And Elizabeth herself gave this reminder: you are loved with an everlasting love, and underneath are the everlasting arms. And the reason I brought that one up in the story after this is because the motivation there was love in trying to reach this unreached tribe in Ecuador. But it had to start with forgiveness. It has to start with forgiveness. And I know it's difficult to do, especially when you know the tragedy of Charlie Kirk is so fresh on our minds and hearts. But it needs to begin. If our actions stem from revenge and anger, we are likely to do more harm than good. Another story that I wanted to talk about was the story of Kate and Andy Grammer. And they had a 19-year-old daughter. Her name was Anne. And Anne had a boyfriend, Connor. And Connor was, had gotten into an argument with his girlfriend. And Connor shot and killed Anne. Shot and killed his 19-year-old girlfriend. And what did the Grammers do? I mean, here he is. He's going to be spending 20 years to life in prison, right? The Grammers decided to forgive Connor. And not only that, they began to witness God's love and forgiveness to him. They visited him weekly, and they ministered God's love and forgiveness to them. And ultimately, Connor became their spiritual son, right? This from the guy that murdered their daughter. And what an unbelievable story of love and forgiveness. Said Connor himself, he said, the Grammer's decision to forgive me was the only reason that I ever came to believe in God and believe in Christ. And today, Connor's now living as a believer in Christ while serving his sentence in prison. Caton and Andy also become his spiritual parents and helping him grow as a Christian. And were even present when Connor was baptized. And the Grammer's decision to respond with forgiveness and respond in love, that's nothing but the love of God shining through them. I mean, these stories are the ones that are transformative. And this is where our heart and attention really needs to be in light of this. And I know it's difficult. But listen, all of us are still angry. We really are. But as my pastor Dave Childers has said, forgiveness, it's not an option. It's a decision that we must make when we have been severely wronged. And when we make this decision to forgive, first of all, as Christians, we have the epitome of forgiveness in Jesus Christ. I mean, even while he was dying on the cross, he said, forgive them because they don't know what they're doing, right? He is our model of forgiveness and love. And if he can forgive those who killed him and forgive us who were born into sin, right, for all of the stuff that we have done, right? Even stuff like murdering and blaspheming and stealing and harming other people and a host of horrible things. If he can forgive all of that, right, then we're called to do the same when we are wronged, right? And I didn't say it's easy, but it's a decision that we must make, a decision. And, hosting the other day the Charlie Kirk show, President J.D. Vance urged everybody, by the way, if you got to see that, he was urged everybody to get involved. That was his That was his main point. Get involved, get involved, get involved. And he added the best way to do that, to honor Charlie Kirk's legacy, was to shine the light of truth like a torch in the very darkest of places. And I couldn't agree with the vice president more. Be a part of what helps change our culture, rather than be a part that is inspiring more anger and revenge, because it's never going to be the answer. The outcome is going to be very detrimental to everything that you're trying to do, that we're trying to do. It's not going to be the answer, because there's going to come a time when things have flipped, and perhaps conservatives might not find themselves in the majority, right? And all of this is going to come back, and we want to make sure that we're on the right side. We absolutely do. One of the things that has proven very productive. Our good friend Lila Rose went to Yale University. Now, Yale University is not Hillsdale College. Okay, this is not you're not going to find a lot of conservatives, so you would think, at an Ivy League school such as Yale. It's a very left-leaning college. Nevertheless, Lila, you got to love her, because she's unafraid. And she decided that she was going to engage in a debate at the Yale University on last Tuesday night. And she won. Not only did she win, she swayed the opinion of very many of the student body that was in the audience. Pro-life activist Lila Rose emerged victorious in an abortion debate at Yale University Tuesday night at the Yale Political and as the Yale Political Union voted 60-31 against a pro-abortion resolution that was pushing choice over life. So they obviously had a resolution, a stand that the university would take, that they were going to, champion, a pro-abortion ideology over a pro-life stance. And it was defeated, thanks to this debate, thanks to Lila Rose. And these are one of the things that we can do. If we can do this in love, even a debate, then you're going to find that our efforts are more productive. The surprising vote at a leftist Ivy League university had attendees rejecting abortion in a resounding show of support for the sanctity of unborn children. And the event held at the union's headquarters drew a packed crowd of students and heightened security following the assassination of Charlie Kirk, obviously. Rose, known for her 2011 undercover videos exposing Planned Parenthood practices, squared off against Francis Kisling, a former president of the pro-abortion group Catholics for Free Choice, in a discussion that underscored the moral imperative to protect human life from conception. And as Lila Rose, if you know Lila Rose, she's just unafraid. Rose passionately argued that abortion constitutes the intentional killing of a human being, and drawing stark parallels to historical atrocities where dehumanization paved the way for violence. She said, when you strip people of their humanity, you open the door to every type of violence. And she invoked examples from the Holocaust to slavery. Challenging the notion that abortion empowers women, Rose contended that true liberation comes through compassion and responsibility, not violence. True women, she said, are empowered. True women's empowerment cannot come from the bloodshed of our killing. And Kisling, the person whom she was debating, who was advocating for abortion and for this resolution, was debating on, the women's autonomy, and emphasized the complexities of unintended pregnancies and the need to prioritize maternal health and relationships. She said, I tend to favor more the value of women's lives. So, and really, ultimately, when you dissect the pro-choice argument, ultimately that it's going to boil down to, what about me? How is this pregnancy going to affect me, right? And unfortunately, it disregards the humanity of the life of the baby that mothers are carrying. And if you can do that, then taking the life of that unborn child, or taking the life of anyone, becomes a lot easier to stomach. And so I was very pleased to hear that in a university that is known to be very left-leaning, Lila Rose was very successful in making her arguments. And the debate was marked by the audience stomping and hissing, highlighting the deep divisions in the abortion discourse that Kissling lamented have persisted since the 70s. But despite the tension, the student body's vote affirmed Rose's pro-life stance, rejecting the pro-abortion resolution by a clear margin, and Rose's win at Yale signals a vital shift in the national conversation, where protecting the vulnerable is gaining ground against the culture of death. And this is the type of thing that if you have a gift in discourse or in debate, if you can make your point succinctly to perhaps your youth group, church, maybe your business, perhaps even your fellow employees, your contemporaries, then you can do it with the motivation of love and compassion, you're going to win the day, because it's a resounding argument. Who does not love babies and children? You would think, when it boils down to, everyone is excited when there's a newborn, right? Everyone, when there's a baby shower, everyone's very excited because they're welcoming this child into life. So it's a relatively easy argument to make, but it's unfortunately, due to our culture, it's not always an easy argument to convince someone who perhaps has already underwent an abortion, perhaps friends that have gone through it. So when you're facing that, delicacy is the rule of the day. Nevertheless, it can be done. And I was very, very delighted to hear that Lila Rose is still championing and not afraid to go into a public forum despite what occurred to Charlie Kirk just last week. So it can be done. We're excited. So, all right, we're going to take a moment. We're going to hear from one of our sponsors, and then we'll be right back. I want to take a moment to acknowledge one of the great sponsors that make this portion of the broadcast possible, and that's Dr. Ray Kelly of Kelly Chiropractic. Treats injuries from falls, accidents, motor vehicle crashes, work-related incidents. For those of you who are suffering from allergies, he also has a procedure called acutherapy, going to treat your allergies and ease some of that discomfort. Accepts most forms of insurance. Been in the business over 33 years here in Las Vegas. Give him a call. Set up your appointment. The number is 702-870-9200. And welcome back, folks. I do want to mention, of course, we have an event coming up for First Choice Pregnancy Services. This is going to be their gala. This gala is going to be a little different this year. It's going to be more personal rather than, the 800 to 1,000 guests that they normally have at one of their banquets. This is going to be a little more intimate, but you also still need to reserve. This is going to be Friday, November 7th, and there's going to be 2 events. And you can come in at noon. There's going to be one at 12 noon, and there's also going to be a second one at 7 p.m. So if you're able to make the noon, great for lunch perhaps. If not, you can make the 7 p.m. one. Either one of those you want to RSVP. Log into fcpschampions.org, and under events, you'll find the gala, and you can register and let us know how many are going to attend. The cost is $150 per person. However, meals will be served. So it's going to be a wonderful meal, either for lunch or for dinner. You do need to RSVP. Again, the is Friday, November 7th, and your choice, either noon, 12 noon, or 7 p.m. And again, you can click on that. And again, the website, fcpschampions.org, click on events and be a part of the gala, which helps support First Choice Pregnancy Services. And listen, folks, we couldn't be here as a clinic if it weren't for our supporters. And folks, to be honest, this is a much needed clinic for women who are facing crisis in their pregnancies. And the proof is in the pudding. 45,000 children are alive today because of Choice. And one of the few places, the only clinic actually, that is doing abortion reversals for women who have taken the abortion drug and have changed their mind, or maybe they were poisoned by their boyfriend or whatever, and they want to have, they want medical intervention. That can happen at First Choice. In fact, there are dozens now of patients whose children are alive today because First Choice has the abortion reversal available to them. So again, mark that on your calendar, November 7th, either 12 noon or 7 p.m., and it's $150 per person, per plate. And join us, find out more about this very, very important ministry. Our goal and desire is to open up, to replicate this clinic throughout Las Vegas. Las Vegas has over 2 million people, and we're vastly underserved. The American women, the Las Vegas women in our city and state, for that matter, are very underserved. We need more First Choices just like this one, and you can help make that happen here in our city, in our state. So again, Friday, November 7th, 12 noon or 7 p.m. RSVP, and again, that website, fcpschampions.org. FCPS stands for First Choice Pregnancy Services. fcpschampions.org. Wonderful website where you can find out more about this ministry, about the gala, testimonies, just everything. And great website. While we're speaking of that, we want to mention also, of course, 40 Days for Life is coming up. And 40 Days for Life, for those of you who are not familiar with this ministry, is probably one of the largest organized Christian prayer events in the world. Hundreds, literally hundreds of cities, 500-600 cities around the world. In almost every single state, there is a 40 Days for Life. And in some states like California, there's 6 or 7 events going on, 6 or 7 campaigns for 40 Days for Life. 40 Days for Life, just so you know, is 40 days of dedicated prayer in front of an abortion facility. We're talking about legal prayer now. Not talking about graphic signs or yelling at anybody. The only reason that folks are there are to pray. Pray for the doctor, pray for the nurses and staff of the abortion clinic, pray for the women and families that are driving into the abortion clinic to end the life of their child, right? For those that might be driving to get the abortion drug, right, to kill their baby at home. First Choice, 40 Days for Life, is making a difference. So far, where First Choice has prayed, over 181 abortion centers have closed. 2 of those right here in Las Vegas. Clínica de Mujeres, where we first started, closed, and then Birth Control Care Center also closed. Both of these places have moved. We have found where birth control is now, a new location. We're now praying at that location as well. And of course, all of this is legal. What you want to do is register. First of all, just log into 40daysforlife.com. That's 0daysforlife.com/Las Vegas. Find our campaign, register, and then using our online calendar, you can plug in the days and times that you wish to pray. And on the resources section of the page, which is at the very end, you'll find our vigil location where we are praying. Download that vigil location map. That'll show you where we can pray, the sidewalks along which we are allowed to be legally, and where we will be praying, and where you will be praying, and where you can park and so forth. And our prayer focus on the abortion clinic that is located in that business complex. Folks, it makes a difference. Whether it's 15 minutes, 30 minutes, or an hour, we're going to be praying from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. starting September 24th all the way to November 2nd. Not just here in Las Vegas and Reno, but in hundreds of cities in the United States and in many hundreds of cities around the world, all doing exactly the same thing that we're doing for the next 40 days, beginning September 24th. That's a week from today. So, or if you're listening to it delayed on this broadcast, 6 days, or depending on what KVV, when you're hearing this broadcast, if it's a rebroadcast. The date is September 24th, going to go all the way through November 2nd. So log in, register, and be a part of the prayer campaign. The other thing I would mention to you is bring a prayer partner. You know, we don't want, depending on the time of day and the day that you've decided to come and pray, for example, if you decide to pray at 6 p.m., from 6 to 7 p.m., perhaps on a Thursday night, bring a prayer partner with you, whether it's a husband or friend, someone who can join with you in prayer, praying along the sidewalk. Doesn't matter that the abortion clinic's closed, because you know what? The spiritual heavenlies that are over that abortion facility don't go away. They don't close during business hours. Those spiritual forces and dominions that are over those abortion clinics are in business 24/7. The enemy never sleeps. And so when we're there praying, we're praying against the authorities and powers in heavenly places, right? That are manifesting in that abortion clinic. So be a part of 40daysforlife.com. I like to mention, by the way, when 40 Days started in College Station, Texas, over 20 years ago, there were 4 people, 2 Catholics, 2 evangelicals, who got together and said, hey, listen, what are we going to do? How are we going to address the problem of praying in our city, in College Station, Texas? How are we going to address this abortion facility? And so they got together and they said, well, let's just pray about it. And they decided upon, well, you know what? We're going to pray for 40 straight days. We're going to pray for 40 straight days. And they did. And that movement spread throughout the state. And from Texas, it spread across the nation. And from across the United States, it spread into Canada and Mexico, and then throughout South America. And now it's spread into Australia, to Europe, just from Japan, it's just Philippines, it's everywhere. 40 Days for Life. And the amazing thing, and I love telling this story, that the Planned Parenthood abortion facility in College Station, Texas, where they began this vigil so many years ago, ultimately closed. And not only did it close, but 40 Days bought the building, and that building is now 40 Days for Life national headquarters. I mean, it's not surprising to me, but I love telling the story because, you know, God can redeem anything. And I mean, really, he can redeem anything. You know, whether it's our broken lives or a horrible building that the enemy has used for destruction and death. And God has done that very thing. And so we want to shout out to 40daysforlife.com. I am, by the way, I have been blessed to be the coordinator here in Las Vegas for 40 Days for Life. And it has been an honor. I've been doing this now over 20 years. And it's just been a great honor to be able to do this. Dozens and dozens of lives have been saved because we've been there. And those are just the ones that we've known about. You know, if we have the opportunity to speak to a young lady or family that's driving into the abortion facility, if they stop and they want more information or they want prayer, we're able to not only pray with them, but we're able to direct them to great facilities like First Choice Pregnancy Services. And over the years, dozens of folks have done that very thing. They've been, you know, they've decided against ending the life and have welcomed life and their child into the world. And I can say that I've been very blessed to hold in my arms a child that has been saved because 40 Days was there in our city, because we've been there. And it's just an amazing thing. The stories are frankly amazing. I remember one particular, there were 2 girls, and in one case, the person who was praying was a good friend, but he was disabled. And so he needed a walker to get to the abortion facility, but he was always faithful and he would pray regularly. Well, he didn't know the effect that he had until one day when he was in a grocery store. And his walker was unmistakable. And the two girls that he had, kind of witnessed to, ministered to, even though they didn't acknowledge him at the time, they walked up to him at the grocery store and said, "You know what? We saw you praying that day. We saw you out there in front of the abortion facility when my friend decided to go get that abortion. But because we saw you praying, we decided to keep this child. And we just want to thank you." This happened in a grocery store. The guy didn't even know, right? And so you never know, and we'll know one day when we finally get home, the impact of our prayers. But you just never know how impactful your prayers and your presence are when you're praying in front of an abortion facility. I have heard from a number of people, and I've heard this repeatedly from patients or the friends of patients who are inside the abortion facility, that while we're there praying, the staff know it and don't like it, and it impacts them. And I'm not surprised, to be honest. So be a part of what 40 Days here in Las Vegas. Again, it's going to begin on September 24th. It's going to run all the way through November 2nd. Log into the website, 40daysforlife.com/Las Vegas. That's 40daysforlife.com/Las Vegas, and be a part of this event here in our city. And you are going to be blessed. I also want to mention, by the way, I didn't mention this before, about the gala, First Choice gala that we're going to have on November 7th. The keynote speaker is going to be Cal Zastrow. And you are going to want to meet Cal. If you can zip on down, there he is. Cal Zastrow is a phenomenal pro-life guy. He's got a zillion children. He has been a part of everything from Operation Rescue to all types of advocacy. He was actually arrested at an abortion facility and was imprisoned under the Biden administration. And the Trump administration pardoned him, along with roughly 10 others that were pardoned. And in fact, my good friend Chet Gallagher was one of those who was also pardoned. Well, anyway, Cal Zastrow is going to be the speaker that day. And you're going to get to hear from Cal. You're going to get to hear from his heart. A lifetime of advocacy for the unborn. And I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a great night and a great noon, depending on when you can come. Again, this is going to be Friday, November 7th. And you can pick the time that you want to come. It'll either be 12 noon or 7 p.m. And that is going to be at the Canyon Gate Country Club. So the way you can register, you can either call First Choice and say, "I want to register," 702-294-CARE, 702-294-2273, and say, "Hey, listen, I heard about this gala that you guys are having on November 7th, and I'd like to be a part." Or you can log into the website, fcpschampions.org, fcpschampions.org, click on events, and scroll down the bottom of the page. It is $150 per person. So if you have a couple, it's $300 for you and a guest. And again, this is our major fundraiser. Our dream, our prayer, our heart is to open up more First Choice Pregnancy Services clinics throughout Las Vegas, throughout our state, and across the nation. And you can help us do it. And this is a wonderful way to do it. So if you're able to, on November 7th, which is a Friday, at 12 noon or at 7 p.m., you can join us and join us and Cal and see what you can do and how you can be a part of the miracle that is First Choice Pregnancy Services. And I'm very pleased and delighted. And by the way, even if you're not able to make this gala, but you would still like to volunteer, Listen, it doesn't matter your level of expertise. Yeah, sure, if you're a doctor in your medical profession and a nurse, we'd love to have you. We could always use more sonographers or nursing staff or counselors or administrators. We could use you, especially if the Lord blesses us by allowing us to open a second or third clinic. But even if you don't have those skills, maybe you would just like to help in some way, we could use you. First Choice is always looking for volunteers, and we'd love to have you. So if you see at the bottom of your screen, there's a number to call, 702-294-CARE. That's 702-294-2273. And set up a time to, first of all, come to First Choice and take a tour of the facility. We love showing off First Choice because it is a beautiful facility. It is literally, it's a clinic, but it's a sanctuary of life. And take a tour of the clinic, find out what makes it tick, find out how we operate here. And then you can volunteer. Find out, fill out our volunteer form and see how you can be a part. The other way that you can help is by letting your church or group or youth group know about First Choice, by allowing us to make a presentation to your church or your youth group or your business. And we would love to come and show your folks exactly what we do here and how First Choice operates as a clinic. And we'd love to be able to do that. If you're interested in us doing so, please give us a call. Again, the number 702-294-CARE. That's 294-2273. And say, hey, listen, we would love to have you come and speak to our church about what you do. Because, look, whether you realize it or not, life issues like abortion do affect the body of Christ, especially our young people. We want to reach out to them in love and show them that there are alternatives to abortion that's available to them. And a lot of these young ladies and men don't realize that even after birth, there are resources that are available to them to help them, deal with the fact that, they've got another life that they're responsible for, and we're there for them. And we want to be a part. We want to be able to show them how to do that. So if you'd love us to come and speak, we'd love to be able to do that. Again, the number there at the bottom of your screen, 702-294-CARE, or you can reach us at fcpschampions.org. And our final story of the day, this one is from the National Institute of Health, and we haven't always been let's just say proud of the National Institute of Health, namely because they were doing a lot of the, if you recall, the COVID research, which eventually they handed off to Wuhan, China, and of course it blew up the world. So it's National Institute of Health, we're not big fans of all the time, although they are doing something good this time. The Trump administration is drawing praise from pro-life folks after reports surfaced that the Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is defunding scientific research that uses aborted fetal tissue. And yes, the National Institute of Health, where your taxpayer dollars go, has been funding research using aborted fetal tissue. That's from tissue obtained from abortion clinics. And they've been doing this testing and research through 17 grants that were initiated by President Joe Biden. And sadly, they are scheduled to continue funding all the way through 2026. But after that, the National Institute of Health says, that's it. We're not doing any more. That's the end of that program, and is not going to renew those grants. The National Institute of Health, in their statement, says that we take this issue very seriously and remain committed to the highest ethical standards in research. The referenced grants initiated under the Biden administration will not be renewed, and NIH is guided by a commitment to valuing human life and ensuring that federally funded research is conducted responsibly and transparently. We are actively reviewing these matters and will take necessary steps to ensure our policies reflect that commitment. So, you know what? We're applauding the NIH, and we want to thank Health and Human Services Director Robert F. Kennedy for ending these grants and turning around the National Institute of Health. So good news. So folks, listen, if you have questions about anything you've heard today, you can give First Choice a call. And remember, the Lord will bless you as you champion for life.